prepaid collect call from
Joey.
An incarcerated individual at New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision. This call is subject to recording and monitoring. Preventing suicide is important. If you have concerns during this call, please contact the individual's facility to communicate with them. Thank you for using Securus. You may start the conversation now.
Your Honor, Mayor Addams, my name is Joseph John Gentile Jr., and I've been in prison basically since July 29, 2005, for a crime I did not commit. It's within your ability of your office to contact the Queen's attorney and ask them to listen to some phone calls. 47 minutes of recorded phone calls recorded between myself and my ex-girlfriend. And these calls prove my innocence. With a lifetime order of protection in place, both my counsel, the district attorney, and Judge Bruckner, or Bruckner, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, refused to play those phone calls at my sentencing. I had requested they be played. 100% prove my innocence, clear, convincing, concrete evidence of my innocence. Yet I've been in prison to watch my father pass on, World War II veteran and esteemed member of the New York State Bar Association, as well as my two aunts who raised me. And now with my wife Tamika Michelle Felton Gentile with stage 3 kidney disease, after years and years and years standing by my side. Children are waiting for me to raise them physically, not just through jail visits and letters and emails. My daughter Assia Gentile and my son Zay Gentile. God willing, I hope your office would listen and look. I have a tremendous amount of social media up. I've had numerous appeals in where I've continuously, to the letter of the law and to the rules of the court, requested these phone calls be played. There's other evidences that are clear and convincing as well, held by the New York City Police Department. This was done under Mayor Bloomberg's administration. Mayor de Blasio turned a blind eye. And God willing, Your Honor, Mayor Addams, he'll take the time to actually look and listen to those phone calls. It just defies belief that there was 47 minutes of phone calls spoken about in my sentencing, as well as to all major New York City newspapers. January 3rd, 2007, I believe. And they wouldn't play them. Of course, then ADA John Carroll stated I threatened, tried to bribe and coerce my ex-girlfriend into dropping charges. And during these 47 minutes of recorded calls, but refused to play them, had knowledge of them prior to trial. And during these calls, not only she stated she told the truth, she'd go to prison. She called the ADA, John Carroll, a geek, and said she would flee to Brazil as a recourse or remedy for these false charges he brought against me at the behest of a former chief financial officer who stole over $200,000 from my business. But I'm not negative, nor am I angry or bitter. I do my best to be the optimist, the forever optimist. And I look at this, at one time I worked in music, in hip-hop and R&B. I was about to close Universal Motown. That's actually in my motion to fix bail. The letter from Universal Motown was investigated by the Queens DA and found to be accurate and true. I had $1 million on the table with them. The reason I'm bringing this up is, Mayor Addams, is I always look for the silver lining in every cloud. In mass incarceration, the underfunding of our judiciary and law enforcement, these are things that result in wrongful convictions. The underfunding of our legal aid societies as well. They're not given the tools they need to adequately defend against persons who are truthfully innocent and or, quite often, more often than not, overcharged. But please, Mayor Addams, listen to these phone calls, 47 minutes of them. There's even a talking Christmas card that I received from the individual who was behind this setup and subsequent wrongful conviction where I was being held at Fishkill Correctional Facility. His signature's on, basically on file with both the Bureau of Prisons, the United States Attorney General's office, as well as the New York State Attorney General's office, the Manhattan DA, and I believe he left from Franklin in 2015, made the newspapers as reputed associate to some organization. Mayor Addams, the simplicity of proving a man's innocence after all these years. A man who spent nearly $500,000 cash, legitimate money, of course, paying video vixens not to have sex, treating women with dignity and respect, and yes, what did I pay for then? An hour of their time. An hour of their time to tell them their work was a man's last name, children to love and respect them when they're old and gray, and yet I was chosen for a sex crime. for me to be set up for a sex crime because no one would want to help. I wouldn't want to help a rapist or a pedophile. I may be in a political sense, an independent thinker these days, although most of my family was conservative Republicans. I'm leaning to the left in a lot of issues these days, from bail reform to a number of other issues. But Mayor Addams, I'm not going to say I was the best man ever to walk the planet. I wasn't a bad one. I definitely was not a sexual offender, a rapist, quite the opposite, nor a racist, and that's the ironic part. I'm not going to say their names here until they wish to publicly, be acknowledged, but there was individuals who worked for a number of major record labels. And they were in the front row amongst friends from Southside Jamaica, Queens, and Queensbridge, and Astoria Projects, Astoria in general, all over the 5 boroughs. And the vast majority was African American. A few from the islands, from St. Thomas, St. Croix. The only white faces in the audience in support of me the first day of my trial was my late father, Joseph J. Senior Esquire, and passed on in 2018, and my Aunt Marie, Mary Gentfield. And the first day of trial, my counsel came to me, Louis Michael Reese, and said, Mr. Gentfield, the district attorney informs me that your ex-girlfriend is scared to testify in front of your friends. Please ask them to leave. So I turned around and I turned and told some friends and associates, listen, brothers, come back tomorrow. She's scared to testify with everyone in the courtroom. So, of course, there's no one on her side of the courtroom, although she has a lot of family that was NYPD, worked in the medical field, etc. So all my friends leave the courtroom, basically leaving the court empty except for my father and my mother. My father being of Italian descent, and my Aunt Marie, Mama Mary, being of Italian descent. So they leave. The jury is brought out, and I had 2 persons of color on my jury, and there's a reason why I'm bringing that up, Your Honor. And then they bring her out. And within the first, she was West Indian Trinidadian, although on the US 61 police report, she claimed to be Native American, thin, straight black hair, West Indian Trinidadian. Her family, or her genetically, she was dark brown skin, but more she's from, India. Our family's bloodline is from India, not Native American. And it took about 90 days into our relationship for me to realize that she was a racist, and I couldn't figure that out. She had brown skin. I'm olive complected when I get some sun. But that's the one thing I didn't like about her early on. That's the reason I'm bringing this up. She gets on the stand, and of course in the direct testimony, she had me wielding and uttering and all kinds of racial slurs as I pulled up on her block, and in her words, pointed my gun at her nice black neighbors. I don't even know who talks like that. But in any event, she said the N-word, used it continuously, alleging that I was using this word, which I don't even use when it's used towards me. When I had persons I dealt with in the neighborhood, be like, yo, that's Joey so-and-so, that's my N, and I'll be like, peace, brother, and give him a hug. That word never came out of my mouth. But when it all said and done, the district attorney's office inflamed the African-American jurors and those like myself who hate racist pigs. I don't care if they're anti-Semite, anti-LGBTQ, anti-black, anti-Latino. If you're a bigot, I got no use for you. That's the American I am. And that's the patriotic American I am. And always was raised to be with my father, who killed Nazis in the battlefield during World War II. God bless my father. But the point I'm making, Mayor Addams, is, I looked at my attorney after this testimony, this false testimony, knowing he read the grand jury minutes and I hadn't, and I was perplexed as he didn't know how he didn't know this was coming. It only came out later that he was good friends with my former CFO, who made the newspaper as part of some organized organization, let's put it that way. And the one who had stole over $200,000. He passed on not too long ago as well. When all said and done, I only ask, and being that the DA heard these phone calls by his own admission several months, 3 or 4 months before my trial even commenced, and then the other evidence is, I would love for your office to open an investigation into this. There'll be some famous women, some women who still have some fame, and 20 years ago that were extremely famous, who will say that they spent time with me alone and not refrained from their sexual advances in a respectful fashion. Like, sister, if you don't want to be my wife, we have no business laying together. That was my morality. No one's perfect. Mayor Addams, I was rough around the edges in other respects. If a person sold narcotics to children, listen, I might not call 911. I might go see them, and physically express my displeasure at that. If someone beat on a woman, raped a woman, was pimping women, again, I might not call 911 because I feel it would be a waste of time. Back then, I may go and see them and physically express how I felt about them. But this is the cloak and the shadow that they've put on me at trial that's on the record, and it has it's done its job all these years, all the way to the United States Supreme Court. I made a little bit of buzz back in 2003 to 2005 in the hip hop and R&B industry, and met some famous persons, some from the NBA, many stars from hip hop and R&B. But again, I'm gonna refrain from mentioning their name. I'll tell you this much: there was a friend of a friend from Los Angeles, and a girl who was in adult movies once called my phone. And I have a strong suspicion these persons will call forward after my release from me and publicly speak, Your Honor. And when she called my phone asking if we could get together, assuming that I would lay with her because she had some fame in the adult film industry, my response was, "Sister, you need to find Jesus." And I hung the phone up on her. Moments later, the friend in common called me up who has some very famous persons. To this day, they have classic albums in hip hop and R&B from the mid-90s all the way to, say, the 2000s. And he called me up laughing, saying that she said that you were the only other man other than her father to hang up the phone on her. Did I wore the jacket of a rapist for the last 18 years, something I'm not capable of, not built for. In fact, a very famous to this day, very relevant hip-hop artist who has all my admiration on the planet. His success is impressive, especially he came from Southside Jamaica, Queens. He referred to me on more than one occasion as Captain Saber Lady. He used a different terminology, but I'll stick with Captain Saber Lady. That's what I was always about, never about harming a woman. Your Honor, Mayor Addams, I sincerely ask for your assistance and to open an investigation into my wrongful conviction. To simply ask the Queens Attorney to play the phone calls where I allegedly bribed, try to threaten and coerce. None of this occurred whatsoever. That's why they didn't play the calls, even though I begged them to in court. I appreciate the time, Mayor Addams, and hopefully you heard this. And whether or not I get any kind of assistance from you, my poor wife, Tamika Michelle Felton Gentile, I'm so proud of saying her name. She must have mailed 10,000 letters to Mayor de Blasio to where her fingers bled. She had 1 million paper cuts, and she complained in 2013 when I was being housed in Sing Sing Correctional Facility. And I've actually sent you a physical copy of that letter, Your Honor. And the reason I bring it up is because, she stopped believing a long time ago. She believes in God and believes in her husband, but she stopped believing in the system. She stopped believing in politicians. And I say this, Mayor Addams, your handling of everything from the migrants flooding New York City to every aspect of what's going on in New York. Sincerely, if should my conviction get any kind of investigative shit not from you, should the courts overturn my conviction, I'm not going to stop until I'm proven innocent. And I would love you to look up at Dr. Lawrence Farwell. His brain fingerprint testing, scientific method, it's lie detector to an extent, but it's 100% accurate unlike a polygraph and admitted to evidence in federal criminal proceedings. The bottom line, the reason I'm bringing it up is when my conviction is overturned, I would use my platform, whether or not I gain any assistance from you, to advocate for you to remain mayor of New York until you can no longer be mayor of New York. You've done a tremendous job as a mayor. I've been watching. I stay watching all business news from CS, Fox News, every bit of news, and read every newspaper and download from the tablet, watching your handling of that crisis. You've done so impeccably. I'm extremely impressed, as I'm certain the rest of the country is. God bless you, Mayor Addams. God bless New York. God bless America. Thank you for your time. Cody, please post that. Mayor Addams, Your Honor, this is a post recording something that escaped my attention while dealing with all the things I'm surrounded by here, Mohawk Correctional Facility, upstate New York and home New York. But please allow me, Your Honor, in 2002, at the same time I was building my then record label, Patriot Records, a building that had been in my family for nearly 100 years came under my control. It's at 45-07 Dick Mars Boulevard. If you look at the property deeds. It was in my family nearly 100 years. In any event, um, one of the perks or deal sweeteners I had, and that enabled me to grab, employees from Def Jam, from Caesar Entertainment in Manhattan, and build my record label faster, was I gave them apartments rent-free, gas and electric included, at my building. Had a couple of apartments and a storefront which I rented to an Egyptian Muslim brother. In any event, it was about maybe 30 to 40 days after they moved in. These are people of color, African American, some brothers from St. Thomas, St. Croix, Jamaica, not Jamaica, Queens, Jamaica Island. And my father called me up and said, Joe, I want you to come over for coffee. So, Your Honor, my father raised me to hate racism. He killed Nazis in the battlefield. And bottom line, not to digress and explain all the stories my father told me about the hardships his father dealt with. Giacomo Giovanni Gentile, when they got off the boat from Italy, how they got spat at by other whites for being Italian, because they were considered non-white. In any event, I go there and I said, Papa, what's going on? It sounded urgent. He said, Joe, I'm getting a lot of phone calls from the neighborhood, from private people representing the Astoria Homeowners Association, the Queens Real Estate Board, even Knights of Columbus, all these different civic associations. The Knights of Columbus had their headquarters more or less one building, right next to a building away from my building, the apartment building. So I said, so what happened? He said, I'm getting phone calls from them. But he said it with a smile. He was proud of me. He said, I'm getting phone calls from them, and they're basically all asking me the same thing. Three of them said the exact same words, Joe. He said, they're asking if, did you rent the building to those people, or did you sell the building to those people? I said, Papa, who called you? Give me the names. He said, no, they made me promise not to tell you the names. And my response to them was, how about I give my son Joe your phone number and you could ask him? And all of them said, oh, no. Second to me was only my father when it came to dealing with racist bastards. They're anti-American. Anybody who hates someone because of their complexion, ethnicity, language, that's the opposite of what we stand for here in the United States of America. And we have some large black eyes on us, count them as two black eyes in American history, that there's remedies for. Never will it be erased. Never could it be downplayed like this jerk, I won't even mention his name, in Florida is talking. I was impressed with some of his leadership, in a bipartisan way, in an independent way, politically, until this recent events came where he is allowed to be taught in schools that there was some sort of benefit to the oppression of slavery. So, in any event, Your Honor, I just have to make this clear to you, that these same organizations wrote letters to my judge and DA, which I didn't get for about a decade after my wrongful conviction, all lying. I never sold narcotics in my life, all lying that I was a drug dealer, that I was an ongoing menace. Mayor Addams, Your Honor, I stopped a home invasion in my neighborhood. I approached an individual who was convicted with his uncles of a $13 million drug conspiracy, who was selling drugs to kids. I approached him and I showed him how I felt about that, physically. I did everything I could to be a good neighbor to everybody, but one thing that a good neighbor is a good American. A good American is not a racist. There was one instance when these friends of mine, I don't want to mention their name now, God willing, they want to, they can supply letters or affidavits. One of them was actually on parole, the light-skinned brother from Brooklyn, to that address, 4507 in 2003, 2004. I don't want to say his name either, but it's on file. And at that time, that neighborhood was all Italian and Greek. And on one occasion, 2 or 3 Escalades or Yukon stopped in front of the apartment building as 2 of my brothers were coming out of the building. And we're going to jump them. They approached them, one with a baseball bat, a stickball bat. And one of them said, I'm friends with so-and-so, an Italian who was actually a known member of a very old organization. They didn't know the guy's name. They kept coming. And then he said my entertainment name, Joey Fingers. He said, I want Joey Fingers. This is his building. He said they all froze, covered their face, and ran for their vehicles and hit the gas so that they couldn't be identified later by my friends and me. I stood up against racism. I stood up against people who were circulating underage prostitution, human trafficking, no lie, broke up pimps. That was a bad guy. Was I a bad guy for that, Mayor? I don't know. But that's who I used to be. Today I realized that, a lot of the people that I went all out to stand up for, I won't say have abandoned me. I haven't been there. So when I come home, I have an obligation to my wife, my children, and now my granddaughter. Shout out Leilani Rodriguez, Asia, Luke Gentile, Zay Gentile, and pardon me. I apologize to my son-in-law, Shondell. Also to my daughter, Asia, Luke Gentile Anderson, and Shondell Anderson. Shout out to you guys. But Mayor Addams, I apologize again for digressing. But that is the ironic part, sir, and I assure you it's true. These same organizations and private people who wrote letters against me wrote letters on behalf of, and you can check this out to the New York State Board of Parole, wrote letters on behalf of 3 reputed drug dealers that were under organized crime that poisoned our neighborhood with $30 million worth of cocaine every year, so said the New York Daily News. They wrote letters on their behalf, but wrote letters against me. And the letters against me were written because they were racist pigs and didn't want non-Italians, non-whites, or non-Greeks in the neighborhood. The ironic part is, thank God, half the neighborhood now was Muslim, Egyptian, Sudanese. So, God bless my endeavor down the line. Mayor Addams, when I grew up in Astoria, Queens, it was similar to Howard Beach, like the poor brother Yusuf Hawkins, may he rest in peace. The alarming spaces wave, where he suffered an ill fate because of racist, ignorant pigs. And my father called me to the TV. I think I was 12 years old. He said, Giuseppe. I said, yeah, Pop. He said, you see what happened there in Howard Beach? I said, yeah. He said, if you're ever on the block and something happens on our block like that, and you're on the block, you better intervene or I'm going to kick the shit out of you. This is exact words. So I held true to my father's words. Back there in Astoria had a group called TMR. They called themselves the Master Race. I call them fools. There's one race, Your Honor, Adams, with all due respect, and that's the human race. I would appreciate an investigation into my wrongful conviction. All I simply ask is that you listen to those 47 minutes of recorded phone calls. The Queens DA cannot deny you that. They can't allege they erased them. I'm threatening and bribing and coercing, then why wouldn't they save them for the New York State intelligence, New York State Police Intelligence Division, in case something ever happened to Miss Prasad, whose whole family was NYPD. I'm grateful for your time. That is true and accurate. I'll pass every polygraph and brain fingerprint testing when it's administered. I'm speaking the truth, and I stand on the truth. Again, I thank you for your time. God bless. Cody, please post that.